artist placement group came out of this notion when I got lost in the factories on the Outer Circular Road. Most of the industries were shut down, but I went to collect some material and I found myself in these factories, and I thought, why aren't we here? And that was my eureka moment. There's a whole different context for us here, also for artists, and as we were all doing events and happenings at the time, I had this idea that there was a new role for artists. What would we have to do if we were in these dirty contexts of commerce, industry and government, as it later became? And the artists that we were involved in at the time, at Central St Martin's, were Barry Flanagan, Geoffrey Shaw, Stuart Brisley and others, and we've got pictures of us sitting in the think tank, as we called it. Our intention was that there was a much more active role if we could negotiate the role, which would carry an artist approach to work in a different context, which would then impinge on what that work would be. And that was to negotiate an open brief. That was that the organisations would invite, that was another important thing, invite to look at what it was that they were doing and then make proposals in the context of what was going on there. There would be a period for feasibility study, but the organisations would pay them for being there. And that was the tough negotiation, because it was to get these host organisations to begin to think that there was some other specialism, some other perspective that was coming in through these people, to question with rigour your reason. And you're not there, the artist isn't there to make solutions. They're there to ask questions, to insist that there be no product, work or idea for the period of the feasibility until it could be seen what a relevance would be inside. You wouldn't know whether there was going to anything relevant would come out, either for the artists or other. And if they didn't, if nothing was going on, they could spit us out. That was fine. To begin with, it was a very naive approach, like heavily naive, for which one got attacked later, for how naive, think of, all that. That actual phrase, I am an archive, or rather, I am a bloody archive, was made in this room when I was preparing and cataloguing APG, Artist Placement Group's archive, to be sold. But then as everything came out and as I looked at everything, I said, I am a bloody archive, and in the archive, obviously the documents, but lots of tapes and sound tapes, audio tapes and visual tapes from way back being put on new things. But everything that was being catalogued, I would run down a little path of memories or something, all these memories will come out from these documents. And then I started to do these walks, I'm an archive, where I would go back to revisit the placements that were done in the 70s and early 80s by the different artists of the Artist Placement Group. There's so much remaking and revisiting and memories then being made into another action and another process for today. I think it's an assemblage. My life is an assemblage. I made assemblage at one time, and then I suddenly found that I was putting together people and things. That's in the APG, but I continue to do that, and I'm coming right back on to making works again. Like there's an assemblage downstairs that Lewinsky took when he was taking pictures of John Latham in our house, in the 70s. It's a house, a studio, an archive, an assemblage, but I feel good about it, and I want it to go to where it can be a resource, and that as part of a tranche of history, if it is seen as interesting and a resource for further action. The Stockholm Conference on Environment in 1972 said, use your artists, don't collect them. And I thought that was a really good quote to be coming from. I think that archives now, it's going back to almost the primitive narrative. It's the stories of our ancestors. So I sort of feel the narrative is now terribly important with the documents and with the closed stuff is the narrative. I mean, obviously the technology is going to go roaring away and doing it better. I mean, we can go to the Tate this afternoon and, see how it is. But I think that there's a huge importance of the stories of the ancestors. There was another thing which has come out is the way everything is being reused and reappropriated. Like, do you need all these copies of everything? Like, yes, I do, because either I will have them in a show, or I will be shredding stuff. But the shredding, I will have the soundtrack of the shredder, and I will use some of these repeats to make a catalogue or to make something for the next show or something. They're all being remade all of the time. And my conversations are being recorded on film, and they are conversations between the women who I've worked with or I've come in contact with during my life journey. So all the conversations are being filmed, and then the walks were filmed, and there's still a lot of editing to do on the films.
And so it's not just so much about the art as this idea of grand discussion, but also all the sensation that comes with everything we do, I guess.
Yes, you bring this right in all the time, and that's why I find it quite difficult. Though, the journey is the life and is the art.
It's everything, and it's not just one thing. It's true. People like to the world likes to organize things. No, so what you're an artist, so this is what you do. This is art.
Absolutely.
But if you have a coffee, this is not art. It's not interesting. Let's not talk about it. Or if you, but at the same time, everything links for me. No, everything is this organic.
I find it. Yes, I find that
especially for you, even I guess your life, your work is your life.
Exactly.
And and the idea of you're an archive is. That's exactly what you do.
All your work seemed to be so much that you got from your grandparents, and you were making from that grandparent time.
Point of view, but it's more, it's more the idea.
I've come late to the concept of archive, and unconsciously, I was doing it and being ahead of the curve in a way all the time. And now looking at the stuff now, I'm distilling. A lot of it is getting distilled and looked at again, and the memories then and stuff, and making more. John had a particularly strong influence on me and on the family and in the art world, and I think because he so believed in art subsuming science, and it was such a sort of strong thing that came through that it put a lot of people for it and against it. The disagreements in the archive, they're there for everyone to see. There's disagreements. And that's another thing about the records in the archive, which all the things that didn't come off are there. So all the correspondences and everything between the host organisations, and as far as one went before one decided, oh God, there's no more energy here. That's why I talk now about, with the current generation, about the engines. Those are the current generation, and they come and talk to me, and they do their PhDs and bars on me. And apparently I'm not an artist, I'm a prime source. Well, there was a difference between Barbara Latham and Barbara Steveni in a recognition that I was doing a work and that I was an artist. And it hadn't occurred to me, particularly although I was doing my work and I was making the things and I was doing performances with Yoko Ono and everything, because of John's aura and his recognition amongst other people and his works and everything, it had not occurred to me that I was this thing, that it was important that I recognised that I was an artist. There's me in here, and there's this great monster APG, which we're rather focusing on here. But the negotiation was definitely part of the artwork. And also the archive, when it went to the Tate, we put an extra thing in there in selling it to the Tate, saying that this was actually an artwork. I'm really pleased, and it feels very comfortable to be passing on what has apparently become relevant and appropriate. And I'm very pleased to be passing on access to these archives, and that they can join with the archive in the Tate. And I think it'd be great that it'd be there and joined with this body of work.